Hi everybody, Laura here. Welcome back and thank you so much for joining us again. Before we move on to who our next guest is on the We Are video series, I must remind you about the new book of business that we are launching. This book of business is made for young entrepreneurs. It has some incredible features to it, like your listing analytics, your event hosting, appointment booking and calendar management, announcements, discounts and coupons that you'll be able to give to your user, lead forms, as well as so much more. So make sure you keep an eye on our pages because we are announcing the launch date very soon. Right, now that that's out the way, our next guest on the We Are video series is someone who's been hailed the coolest thing to happen to vocal music. Rachel Masson is a multi-award-winning singer, songwriter, vocal coach, public speaker, workshop leader, and musical director. She was absolutely incredible to speak to and has an amazing story to tell. So I hope you enjoy this video just as much as I did chatting with her. So without keeping you waiting any longer, here's Rachel Masson. The first thing is to talk about you, who you are, your story, where Rachel came from.
So I'm Rachel Mason. I'm a musician. I'm a mentor, I'm a songwriter, musical director, vocal teacher. I've got 2 toddlers and a husband. And so I have quite a lot of different things, different bits of things I do. So I have a bit of a varied career. I grew up in London originally, and then my parents decided they didn't want to raise me in the city, so we moved out to North Somerset. So my dad could work in the Bristol office of his company. We moved out to North Somerset to where in the West Country, where my sister was born, and I've lived out here pretty much all of my life. I did my music degree in Cardiff and then moved back down here after that, and it's very much where I feel comfortable. So I still pop into London and other places for work for some different things, but I feel very happy out in the country. And from here I run my choirs, I have set up various businesses, and done pretty much everything else in my career.
And so what made you want to get into music, or what drove you to that career? Was it just something you've always had in you, or?
Yeah, I've always been a musician. I didn't know it as a child. I always had songs in my head. I always made up tunes and learnt pop songs from just a few months old, really. My parents would be really surprised at how I'd pick lyrics up from pop songs and just sing them. And I have a condition called Synesthesia, which means I see music as colours and I taste music as well. There's quite a few musicians who also have that, like Pharrell Williams, Tori Amos. Quite a few of them have this same condition, and so I always thought that everybody had that, because when you're a child you don't realise that what you have might be different. And I remember telling my parents about the colour of Wuthering Heights, the Kate Bush song, and my parents sort of looked blankly at me, and I said, "Oh, isn't it green when you hear it?" And they were like, "No, Rach, it's a song." I was like, but it's green. So I realised, oh, okay, my brain's a bit different. So it's like I was already hardwired to be a musician, basically. And I started writing songs when I was 4, and I've just carried on doing that. Started learning piano and guitar and things, and have just always wanted to make music and be creative.
And so did you sort of just, because of your love of music, you decided you want to share this with everybody, or was it something out of college that you decided to do, or how did you go about opening up your businesses that you have?
So yes, after my music degree, I wanted to teach singing. So I started doing that, gradually built up my vocal practice. So I was teaching privately at home, but also teaching lessons in schools as well, private lessons in schools. And I was able to, because I was doing a part-time job at that same point, doing admin, and I hated it. Nothing wrong with it. Some people absolutely love it. I just hated it. And so there's nothing like misery to drive you on to really do the thing you want. So I just pushed and pushed and pushed until I got enough students, got into enough schools to be able to just finance myself, my life, just being self-employed. So I could give up the day job essentially, and have been self-employed. That was, 16 years ago. So yeah, quite a long time now.
How did you go about building up your customer base while you were doing part-time work? I mean, how on earth did you do that?
Well, I used to come home at lunchtime because I worked really locally. So I'd come home at lunchtime and spend my whole lunchtime emailing schools and phoning them and trying to see if they wanted a singing teacher to come in. And eventually quite a few schools said yes. So then once I was there, I was able to kind of advertise and put on little concerts, which students would go, oh, the singing's really good, I want to be part of that. So I do quite a few free things for the schools as well, like running little vocal ensembles and things, just to get people noticing that I was there and that I was doing things, and gradually built up more and more students. And with my home teaching as well, a lot of it's by word of mouth. But I did advertise quite a bit, and I used to do some teaching for local drama clubs and things like that, where I go and offer my time for free. This is when I was still, working my other job. Gradually that kind of reputation and people who wanted vocal teaching. So it took a little while to build up to the point where I could finance myself just doing that.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do at the end of the day. Like I think the most important thing to realize is that it's something that doesn't happen overnight, and there is no better form of marketing than word of mouth, because even though there's so much online and there's so many ways to market and advertise yourself, I'm sure you've seen at the moment online marketing is flooded with because lockdown's happening, which is great. I think it's great that there's so many people out there pushing their businesses, but you could spend a whole bunch of money on marketing and ad spend or whatever it is and see no results. But if you sort of, like you say, do a little bit of freebies or give of your time, your word of mouth will be stronger than your sort of advert that you put online. So I think that's really important to note, that word of mouth, it might be quite old school, but it's not dead.
Someone can recommend you, particularly because I teach a lot of children, a lot of teenagers. So when they or their parents say, oh yeah, we absolutely recommend Rachel, that means an awful lot from them. And that tends to carry more weight to the person that they're recommending me to.
Yes.
So a lot of times people get in touch and say, oh, you've been recommended by so-and-so. And I'm like, oh.
I'm one of those people that would rather go for the recommended person than somebody else. Yeah. Cool. So your hurdles, let's talk about the challenges of entrepreneurs, what we face, and sort of, like I say, it's not something that happens overnight. So what sort of challenges have you had to, or obstacles have you had to overcome in order to sort of be awarded these incredible awards that I would love to chat about just now, and to get your name out there and to be, a well-known musician at the end of the day? How, what challenges have you had to go through to get there?
Well, one of the first things was location for my business. This was back in the kind of early 2000s, and I tried to set up my vocal teaching practice in Cardiff, where I'd done my degree, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work there, and so I ended up moving back to North Somerset, where I've got a lot of contacts, and I grew up here, and I was part of lots of theatre groups and things like that. And what I found was doing exactly the same thing but in the wrong location just didn't work.
Right.
And so it's very much about who you can kind of get alongside to kind of support you. Although I was a sole trader, I needed to be in the right place, and it just didn't work when I was in Cardiff. So that was a big hurdle to kind of realize I need to relocate. I need to go back to where I came from, essentially, where all those contacts. And then it happened. It still took a while, but it sort of got momentum much quicker because people knew sort of who I was and what I did. And they were like, oh, she's gone off and done her music degree now, so she'll have even more training. And, and so that was a big thing that I learned. With something that's more kind of because people have face-to-face lessons with me. They have Zoom lessons at the moment, obviously. Face lessons. So with some companies you can literally be anywhere and it doesn't matter, but very much with what I did, I had to be in the right place. And when I came back to where all my contacts were, it happened in a much easier way. So that was a big hurdle.
Is that something you realized quite quickly, that it's my location, or did it take quite a few thoughts and sort of like what's going on here to realize, oh my gosh, it's actually my location?
It took a little while because I sort of thought, oh well, I can do this. It's fine. I eyes and things. But back then, in the early 2000s, obviously the internet existed and things, but you couldn't do. You sort of wouldn't take as many recommendations from it. There was less emphasis on that kind of advertising, and I just didn't have the traction. I just wasn't famous enough in Cardiff. There were a lot more singers there who were Welsh as well, and the fact that I'm English didn't really help me. So it took me a little while because I just thought, oh, with perseverance it will happen. And then I look at it and think, okay, why is this not happening? I realized.
Would you say it was more like a gut feeling that you sort of knew that you were in the wrong location?
Yeah, I think so. And coming back to North Somerset was really good for me for so many reasons. But that was kind of the final kind of decision of I need to actually go back to do the job that I want, to create the business that I want.
And when you sort of moved back, did you find that business took off quite easily after that?
I got quite a few students very quickly. So I started off just teaching 1 or 2 evenings a week. So I'd work in the day, my admin job, and then I'd come home and teach. So I set up my little studio and things. And then gradually that sort of built up. So it started to build pretty quickly from when I came back.
And then for someone who's wanting, the music industry is booming. It always has, and it will continue to do so. For someone who's wanting to get into the industry, just like fashion, it's an incredibly tough industry. What would you recommend, or how do you think they should get their first sort of foot in the door?
I guess it depends what they want to do in the industry. So if you want to be a singer and a songwriter, then having some vocal lessons and that kind of thing is always useful. And if you get a good teacher, they'll kind of support you and mentor you as well, and give you contacts and people who will support you when you make your records and that kind of thing. If you're looking more at the kind of technical side of the industry, doing a course that like BIM and quite a few other places do really good courses where you can learn that, all those kind of technical aspects. And the same with singing and songwriting. Actually, there's lots of different courses, so it's always good to kind of go through that process. But the main thing is to just keep creating, to find who you are. We all start off, like the songs I wrote when I was little are terrible. If we listen back to them, they're just awful. I'd never put those on a record, but we all have to start somewhere. And the most important thing is to just keep doing it, keep creating, and then gradually you'll hone your skills. And the more you learn, the more people you work with, and the more kind of influences you gather, the better you'll get at your skill.
So you definitely say that staying true to who you are as an artist is very important in order to sort of growing your community around you?
Definitely. I think even more so nowadays that singers and songwriters and things are everything's online, isn't it? Everybody's got Twitter, everybody's got Instagram and stuff. And what we really like, I mean, look at someone like Katy Perry. She's got just billions of followers. It's a crazy number because she's really honest. She talks about, like, you know, not putting any makeup on and that kind of thing. And people love that very human side of her, rather than this kind of pristine, you know, look at me on stage with microphones. It's the kind of behind the scenes stuff as well that people really like. So the more honest you are, and the more you're comfortable with yourself and your flaws as well as your kind of attributes, the more easily liked you are, I would say. And you kind of attract fans and followers and people who like you for you, and therefore will like your music because it's a reflection of who you are. It's an extension of you, rather than you singing, I don't know, covers of somebody else's songs, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of tapping into what makes you you, and therefore makes you different to other people.
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to blend in on social media. It's so, you know, so easy to just become like the other account that you sort of scroll past. So
yeah,
you'll find that those people that are sort of sticking out are the people that are staying true to who they are, and the people who are sort of like leading the way in regards to the next TikTok or something, you know, the people that are generating the content, that are putting it out there first. A lot of the other people then hop on that. So yeah, definitely, I think, like you say, staying true to who you are is the best way in order to grow your business. But with that being said, sometimes staying true to who you are is slow, and growth is slow. So for someone who's struggling to take off, let's say they've studied, they've potentially had a music coach, but they're just not sort of seeing the results that they want, what sort of advice can you give to those people who are struggling to develop themselves or grow?
Yeah, it's really difficult. And I think we all hit that point where we kind of think, okay, is this going to happen for me? Or shall I just go and do a normal job and just be normal, rather than being a creative, which is hard sometimes. I've definitely felt that at times. One of the things that I do is I collaborate with other people. So your own sphere of influence will only be the people that know you and the people that follow you online and the people you know and things, because a lot of the industry is kind of who you know and getting into the right room with the right people kind of thing. And so co-writing with other people, contacting other producers, writing with lots of different people, just create your sphere of influence gets so much bigger because you have all of their contacts. So if you wrote a song with someone who's a sort of fairly well established artist, then you tap into their fan base, or you can be an opening act for them when they tour, when people are allowed to do gigs again. And their producers know who you are, and so much of it is just getting those contacts, and everybody's pretty normal. There's always some slightly weird people, but people are just people, and a lot of the time you can just contact people. The worst they can do is just ignore you or say no. But quite often people are fairly happy to write with you, or to work on a song with you, or sing something that you've written, because a lot of artists are in the same position. They appear to have this amazing career and be making loads of money, but probably behind the scenes it's not all smooth sailing all the time.
You mentioned something that I thought you could probably have dealt with. What, in regards to, let's say you write a song and you think it's absolutely brilliant, but it gets rejected when you put it out there, or it doesn't take as well. How do you deal with that? Because that can really, rock the boat a little bit when you've put your heart and soul into something and you do not see the results back. Yeah,
I mean, it is hard. It is hard when you do put but especially if it's a very personal song, if you've written it about your own experiences. I think what I've learned over the years is not everybody's going to like everything.
Yeah.
And especially if you're an independent artist, you're not going to have the reach of someone like Lady Gaga or Sam Smith. Although Sam Smith's new album hasn't sold particularly well, which everybody's really surprised about, because he's won an Oscar, he's really famous, and won 5 Grammys or something. And so even someone as famous as Sam Smith, sometimes people just don't like what he's putting out for some reason. But yeah, especially if you're independent, you don't have a record company behind you pushing and pushing and pushing for your songs to be on the radio and that kind of thing. So it is just, you know, you putting it out there. And sometimes people just aren't interested. I think the market is so saturated now that you don't have to go out and buy CDs like people did. I'm so old, but I bought
CDs.
And buy CDs. Woo!
Yeah.
Money, and you go and buy the CD, and you would play it and play it and play it and play it and play it to death.
Scratch it up.
Exactly. And you'd play every single track, so there'd be a couple of singles from it, but there'd be lots of album tracks as well that you get to know. Nowadays with streaming, and there's a lot of positives with streaming, but it means that we can digest music so quickly just from our phone. I can just click on Spotify and play anything, and so therefore album tracks don't get any attention because people only really want to hear what's been on the radio, and that kind of thing. So, you know, writers who used to write album tracks for people don't actually really get any business anymore. And people can just be quite disposable about music because they haven't purchased it. They're just sort of renting it on Spotify, so they can listen to it and then sort of go, don't know, sorry, or skip over it and listen to something else, and you get recommendations all the time of, if you like this, then you might like this, and so then you're off down a wormhole of other songs. So it's harder to capture the attention of the listener nowadays, and it's important to not feel too personally rejected, because it will feel really personal. You think, oh, people didn't like the song, but usually it isn't that people don't like if it's not a great song, then maybe that's what it is. But if it is a really good song, people just aren't really taking to it. It's just, there's lots of circumstances of various things. Maybe it's a bit too downbeat and people want more upbeat stuff at the moment, or something. So you've got to develop a slightly tough skin and know that it isn't always about you. It's about what other people want, which can be hard. But yeah, it's important to learn that.
Yeah, I mean, I think also I've seen a couple of songs on Instagram or TikTok that were sort of produced 10 years ago are now all of a sudden blowing up. They weren't big back then, but now they're sort of having their time to shine, which is crazy, absolutely crazy that happens. But it's just the way, I guess, it goes. I'm not sure how the world works.
There's a James Bass, which one it is, but that's become insanely popular. It's about 10 years old, I think, but it's really popular because it's on something on TikTok. And one of the co-writers has done brilliantly from that, and it's amazing that he does these weird things. You just never know.
You have your big break. It's absolutely crazy. And then just on that, I guess, what would you say the future of music is if people are not producing albums anymore? What do you think they should create a single track, or sort of what do you feel is the future of music?
It's difficult because I talk to a lot of co-writers who have done huge things. They work with big stars, and they used to write album tracks for them. So they now aren't making as much money. So it's difficult because the album is very much a work of art. So I still do EPs and albums and things with my co-writers because you want that whole concept. So for creatives, we want to still produce that. It's just that the listeners aren't always that interested. They'll just download one song and won't get your whole concept. So I don't know what the future is really of the music industry. I wish I did, because I'd probably make quite a lot of money if
I feel we're in that limbo between having, sort of your mobile phones is like your iPod or MP3 player, and then also people still sometimes listen to CDs. So I definitely feel we're in a transition period from, further along in the transition, that's for sure. But we're still in this limbo where no one is actually 100% sure which way it's going. And I think it's going to be quite interesting to see where it does go.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. And in as short of way, I'm not sure the right way to say it, if you could give one piece of advice or a couple of words to young people, young entrepreneurs, what would they be? Just sort of basic.
I would say always be kind, always be on your best behavior, because you never ever know who you might be speaking to, who might see what you're doing. And it doesn't take much to get a bad reputation. I'm not saying that as a kind of warning, but it's sometimes word can get around if you're known as being difficult or something like that. So it's always be kind to everyone you meet, because you don't know who they are. And yeah, be genuine and nice. And I would also say do your research, because there'll be some people who want to work with you who don't have your best interest at heart. There'll always be some people like that, which is sad to say, but I've definitely had experiences like that. And I'm glad now that I've had those experiences, because it's taught me an awful lot about being more discerning. But yeah, don't be too trusting with when you first encounter someone. Try and work out where it's going to go.
Yeah,
just to be safe.
Yeah, I think for me as well, that's one of a tough lesson I've had to learn along the way, is being, a nice person, I automatically think someone might have be thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. We'll help each other out, or no problem, I'll do this for you, and like you said, there are people out there who just don't have your best interest at heart, and who actually don't care about you at the end of the day. That's what it's about. They just don't care. They sort of care about their own gain and their own, what they can get out of it. So yeah, I think that's a really great piece of advice, is to just be discerning, and like you say, do your research with who you're interacting with. And I stalked you a little bit. But I saw you've won multiple awards, and recently you were on a Woman of the Year.
Yesterday, that was
so talk about that. That's absolutely incredible.
That's particularly weird when I still don't know how that happened. I just seem to keep winning things. It's bizarre. I've done lots of singing and songwriting things, so I win awards for that. So that's more kind of obvious, because it's my job. But then last year I was up at I think 2 a.m. feeding my baby, who wouldn't sleep, and I was just scrolling through the internet like, oh god, nothing to do, I've got to try and stay awake, and I saw this advert for Freelancer of the Year, which a group called Ipsy run in the UK, and I thought that's quite, so you could nominate yourself to be Freelancer of the Year, and so I filled in the form, not really thinking about it much. I just sort of filled it in and sent it off, and then a few days later I got an email saying you're in the final 6. And I was like, I can't even remember what I wrote on the form. Here I am. And it was one of the forms that you fill it in and send it and it's gone. Like, you can't, you have saved it. And I thought, oh God, what the heck did I write? My second child just going, what? And they went, come to London for a presentation. I was like, what? So I had to kind of get my on that, and went and did that. And then at the award ceremony last year, I found out I'd won, which was the big, I don't think I've ever been more surprised about anything in my life. It was just so weird. And I just looked, because I do my acceptance speech, and I just looked really stunned, because I just couldn't believe that happened. And that was that was such an amazing confirmation that I'm actually good at running business and good at what I do. And you win. They do a young entrepreneur bit as well. So there's some of your young entrepreneurs put into that. And yeah, the people in that were amazing. Yeah, you win. I as freelancer of the year, I won £5,000 prize money.
Amazing.
Which was amazing. Yeah. And I just set up new businesses at that point without any financial kind of backing, because I just come off maternity leave, so I couldn't really afford them. But I was like, I'm just going to set them up and we'll just see what happens. And one was, I was like, it'll be all right. Yeah, how I roll. It was an artist management company and record label was one of them, and I was like, it'll be fine. I'll find the money. And then the other one was I'd had postnatal depression with both of my children, and it had been really, really bad. And I did a lot of songwriting myself while I was going through that. And when I we talked about being true to yourself, when I admitted online to my followers and things that I'd struggle with postnatal depression, I had so many people contact me and say, oh my goodness, I thought it was just me. And it's like, it's 1 in 7 women. It's a really high number that gets it. And so I set up these songwriting workshops where I'd get together with women and men. Actually, men also can get it, where we'd talk about our experiences. We'd sort of have our children there as well, playing and things, and drink tea and eat cake. And we would, through talking, we would write a song together based on our experiences of what we've been through. So it kind of became someone referred to it once as their anthem for wellness. So they'd have the lyrics of the song on there, typed up on their wall and things like that. So they look at that and go, oh my gosh, I've come such a long way. And so I basically do that as a non-for-profit. And so the prize money I won helped sort both those two businesses out, which was amazing. And it's led me on to so many other things. It's so then getting women like doing all these other things. Woman of the Year committee, nominating committee found me, and I was part of that.
That's amazing.
I get some very strange emails sometimes where it takes me about 5 or 6 times to read them and go, oh, what? Wow. And there's lots of things like that. I'm being a mum as well, and mum in business and things. So there's lots of things have come from that. And I work with lots of different charities. I love doing as much charity work as I can. So I support a lot of Well Child is one of my charities that I support. So I help them run their choir competition, which and the winning choir that gets mentored by me performs in front of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at this big dinner thing in London with loads of celebrities there.
Amazing.
Lots of celebrities, amazing parents, kids who have been through really difficult times with their health. And then there's me and my husband there as well. And we're like, we're not really we're not celebrities, and we're not we're just there as well. And I got to meet Harry and Meghan from that, which was amazing. Sorry?
When was that?
That was I was massively pregnant with Elias then. So it was the end of 2018. So I was I looked like a whale. I was and Meghan was also pregnant with Archie, that boy, but she was only a tiny bit, like a couple of months pregnant. So they knew they were pregnant then, but they hadn't told anyone. And I looked like a boat. I was nude. I was about 3 weeks away from giving birth. So I was
that
was funny. But that was an incredible experience. And I was just honoured to help the choir, help them, because that's all part of the fundraising for the very ill children. So that was just my way of sort of helping. So getting invited to the awards and then getting invited to meet Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was
even cherry on top. And can someone just get involved in the charity, or how would they sort of, if they want to give back, and they just get involved in the charity, or how does it work?
I think it depends what you can what you can offer them. So with Well Child, they run a school choir competition. So I got in touch with them and said, would you like me to come on board as one of the judges and mentors? And they were like, oh yes, absolutely, because I'd done quite a lot of stuff by then, judging and things. So and I was quite happy to just do all that for free, just to, you know, to support them. So I think it depends what you can offer, and if you've got any experience with the charity, or if you understand their work. So I do a lot of work with mental health charities as well. I'm a patron for a local mental health charity called Vine Counselling Services, and they're the charity that helped me when I had my mental health crisis years ago. So they're always a charity that I love to support, because they're very close to my heart. So yeah, it's definitely possible. Charities are always looking for help and ways of raising money. So particularly if you've got, you know, entrepreneurs that are quite good at thinking of new ideas and doing different things, and there's a particular charity they want to work with, then it's always worth getting in touch, because the worst they can do is ignore you or say no. That's the worst that can happen.
We will chat soon. I've got the cat telling me it's food time now. She's here. All right, I'll chat to you soon.
Take care.
Okay, cheers. Bye. Bye.
Bye.